Today, I'm gonna explain a British science fiction and drama movie, called About Time. The movie tells the story of Tim Lake, a young guy who grows up in Cornwall. He lives harmoniously in a house by the sea with his eccentric family, consisting of his ever-busy mother, Mary, his father, James, who always spends his afternoon playing table tennis with him, his charming yet absent-minded uncle, Desmond, and his free-spirited sister, Catherine or Kit Kat. Unusually, this family has quite strange habits, like going every day to the beach for tea, or watching movies in the yard every Friday regardless of the weather. Apart from that, they also host a New Year's Eve party with their family and friends every year. At this year's party, Tim tries something new by finding a girl as his couple to start the year. Hence, he navigates awkwardly through the crowd, but he ends up being dragged around by his friend, Jay, and accidentally knocks over a table. On the other hand, Kit Kat manages to flirt with a man named Jimmy. During the countdown to the new year, Tim has been dancing with a girl named Polly, who leans in for a kiss, but he shakes her hand instead, leaving her disappointed. The next day, Tim wakes up from a severe hangover and is embarrassed from last night's event. After that, he is called by his father to his room, where James informs him of a family secret, that the men born into their family, including Tim, have the secret ability to travel back in time to moments they have lived before. At first, Tim does not believe him, but his father does not seem to be joking with his words while giving him some rules to follow, that they cannot go to a past they did not experience or a place they have never been to. He then gives the instructions to do the time travel, which are basically to lock himself in a dark place like a large cupboard while thinking of the place and time where he wants to be. At that point, Tim still thinks that his father's words are a joke, so he decides to prove them untrue. He goes inside the closet and thinks of the New Year's Eve party last night. A few moments later, he comes out of the closet and is surprised to see himself wearing his clothes from yesterday. As the party goes downstairs, Tim heads down and is suddenly pulled by Jay, but this time, he is able to evade a table that he previously knocked over, and likewise, he boldly kisses Polly during the countdown. After everything he has been through, Tim finally realizes that he has the strange ability and decides to go back into the closet to travel back to the present. He continues to talk with James and listens to his father's experience about the ability. In the end, James discourages his son from using his ability to acquire money or fame, or else he will lose more valuable things like love. Because of that, Tim decides that he will use it to improve his love life by having a girlfriend. The following summer, Kit Kat invites her friend, Charlotte, to stay at the beach house for 2 months. While they are sunbathing one afternoon, Charlotte asks Tim to put some sunscreen on her back. Since he secretly likes her, Tim uses the opportunity to help her, but he ends up spilling the bottle on her instead. Humiliated, he immediately uses his ability to travel back in time and acts more cautiously about it. Tim tries desperately to impress Charlotte over the summer, but he fails every time until her last day of stay. On the night before she leaves, Tim finally confesses his love to her, but he is instantly turned down, discovering that Kit Kat already warned her that he might do this. Charlotte tells him that he should have told her earlier, where things might have been different. Because of this, he travels back in time to tell Charlotte in the middle of the holiday, but this time, she advises him to wait until her last day to see if something happens between them. Heartbroken, Tim realizes that he never has a chance with Charlotte because she is uninterested in him no matter what. In addition, he also learns that time travel cannot change anyone's mind. After the summer, Tim leaves the house and moves to London to pursue a career as a lawyer, living with his father's acquaintance, Harry. He is initially excited for the new chapter of his life ahead, but at the same time he is also disappointed to learn that Harry is an angry misanthropic playwright. Tim previously planned to get a girlfriend while he is in the city, but in the first 6 months, he has no luck in romance. The only thing he manages to do is befriend a co-worker named Rory. However, everything changes when Jay invites him to Don's Le Noir, a strange restaurant where the guests dine in total darkness. There, the two meet two girls named Mary and Joanna. Tim and Mary get to know each other in the darkness. After dinner, Tim and Jay finally meet the girls face to face, and Tim is instantly stunned when he sees Mary. Unlike Jay, who is out of luck, Tim gets Mary's phone number and they plan to meet again. Tim happily walks back home, only to find a distraught Harry, whose opening night of his new play has been ruined by an actor forgetting his lines. Therefore, he decides to travel back in time and joins Harry before the opening night. He then asks the lead actor to rehearse his lines, and the play is going well, but then another actor forgets his lines instead. Tim travels back in time again and helps the actor from backstage, and the play ends up being a triumph. However, when Tim tries to call Mary, he discovers that by going back in time to help Harry, the dinner with Mary never happened. He desperately joins Harry for breakfast the next morning. Harry shows him a newspaper which published an article about his successful work. On the other hand, Tim only notices an ad for Kate Moss exhibition in the city. Given that Mary is a fan of Kate Moss, he spends several days sitting on a bench in the exhibition, waiting for the love of his life to arrive. A week later, Mary finally walks in, and Tim nervously approaches her. They both get to know each other again and recount their respective lives, but Tim discovers that she now has a boyfriend named Rupert. Because of this, he asks her the details of when and where they met. Knowing that Mary met Rupert at Joanna's party, he immediately goes to the toilet and travels back in time to prevent it from happening. As soon as he arrives at Joanna's apartment, Tim persuades Mary to leave the party with him before Rupert arrives. They both enjoy a lovely dinner and get to know each other better. Just before they part, Mary asks Tim to walk her to her car, which was parked in front of her house. This suggests that she practically invites him to spend the night with her. Their relationship develops well over the following months, and Tim eventually moves in with Mary so they can live together. At one point, Tim gets to meet Mary's parent who suddenly come to her house. At first, things go a bit awkward, but with couple of time travels, everything works out. One night, he wants to watch a play, but Mary is too tired to keep him company, so he invites Rory to watch with him. When the show is over, he accidentally encounters Charlotte, but the conversation quickly turns awkward. He even tries a second time, but it still does not go well. On the third attempt, Tim decides not to approach her, so he continues on his way with Rory, but this time, it is Charlotte who spots him and initiates the conversation. Even though she has plans with her friend, Charlotte invites him to dinner, where she mentions her regrets about turning him down last summer. She ends up asking him to walk her back to her apartment and attempts to go inside with her, but Tim turns her down, realizing that he is in love with Mary. He rushes back home and asks Mary to marry him, which she gladly accepts. The following summer, Tim takes Mary home to meet his parents. Meanwhile, Mary is getting closer to Tim's mother, and Tim spends quality time with his father. Surprisingly, he also meets Kit Kat, who tells him that her life in London was not going well, and that she broke up with Jimmy. At dinner, the family is surprised to learn that Tim and Mary are getting married. Not only that, they also say that their wedding ceremony will take place very soon because Mary is pregnant. The long-awaited day finally arrives and everything goes perfectly. Their wedding ceremony is filled with romance and laughter, although they have a few problems such as Mary's dress being slightly torn, and a storm ruining the party venue. However, the biggest problem is that the groom has chosen Rory as the best man who gives a horrendous speech, so Tim decides to fix it by traveling back in time to ask Jay to be the best man. The problem is that it also does not work either, neither does when he asks Harry to be the best man after Jay. He eventually asks his father, who manages to come up with a few words befitting the occasion. A few months after their marriage, Mary gives birth to their daughter, Posey. They also move to a bigger house, so they can live comfortably as a family. At that time, Tim admits that time travel is no longer useful as he starts to enjoy every moment. Long story short, Posey's first birthday finally arrives. All the guests also come, including Harry and Rory, but Kit Kat does not show up at the party. After a while, the doorbell rings, and Jimmy suddenly arrives to inform the family that Kit Kat was driving drunk after an argument with him, causing her to crash her car on the way to Tim's house. Hoping to save her, Tim goes back in time and picks her up from her home instead. When he talks to Mary about Kit Kat's condition, Tim realizes that he does not solve the problem, even though he saved her from the accident. He intends to interfere in her life, otherwise she will continue to have problems with her drinking habits and her boyfriend. Therefore, Tim confesses his secret ability to his sister and takes her back in time during the New Year's Eve party where she met Jimmy. This time, Kit Kat vents her anger by punching Jimmy despite him not remembering her in this timeline. They both manage to return to the present, and Kit Kat realizes that she now has feelings with Jay, so she dates him instead, and it turns out that their relationship is better than she had with Jimmy. On the other hand, Tim happily returns home, only to find Posey has never been born and he has a son instead. Because of this, he immediately goes into a closet and travels back to the past precisely on the day his son was born to talk to his father. James explains that they cannot change events prior to their children's birth and ensure that that exact child will still be conceived. If he wishes to keep Posey, he can never change anything that happened before she was born. Hence, Tim accepts that he cannot change his sister's life by changing her past and allowing the crash to occur, ensuring Posey's birth. While Kit Kat is in the hospital, Tim and Mary stay by her side until she realizes that she has to improve her own life. Mary tells her to try dating a guy who is nice to her, and Tim takes advantage of that to suggest her to start seeing Jay. Coming home from the hospital, Tim sees his little girl and implies to have another baby, though his wife is reluctant at the idea. Despite her initial protests, they have a baby boy 2 years later, having a perfect life. One time, the couple accidentally leave their daughter downstairs, where she destroys Mary's important manuscript from her office. Tim decides to use his ability to fix it, but suddenly they get a call from Tim's mother, saying that James has been diagnosed with terminal cancer. Therefore, Tim, Mary, and Kit Kat travel as quickly as possible to the beach house, where Tim learns that time travel cannot undo his father's cancer, as going back far enough would risk the birth of Tim and Kit Kat, something he is unwilling to do. His father has known for some time, traveling back in time to effectively extend his life and spend more time with his family. With the remaining weeks of his life, James teaches Jimmy what he considers a much more important lesson by using his ability to be truly happy. The first is to live life as normally as possible, with all the everyday tensions and worries. Second, after he lives the day once for the first time, he should go back and enjoy moments of his life while noticing how sweet the world can be. Tim follows this advice and finds happiness in his life, but sometimes there are days that are better lived once, like the day of his father died. Unprepared to say goodbye, he travels to the past to visit his father while he is still in good health. Even after James' death, Tim is comforted because he can still travel back to the past whenever he misses his father. One day, Mary tells Tim that she wants a third child. He is reluctant at first because it means he will not be able to visit his father again. After much thought, he ends up accepting because he knows that there is nothing that makes him happier than being a father with the woman he loves. As his youngest child is about to be born, Tim travels back one last time to tell his father that he cannot visit him anymore. As such, they both travel back to relive a fond memory from Tim's early childhood, being careful not to actually change the experience to avoid causing any changes to the present. Returning to the current timeline, Mary gives birth to a baby girl, and Tim finally accepts the loss of his father. He also continues with life normally and enjoys every moment of it, while Kit Kat gradually recovers and gives birth to her child with Jay. The movie ends with Tim discovering the formula for his own happiness, that it is better to live each day once, deciding from then on not to time travel at all, and starting to appreciate life with his family as if he is living it for the second time.